am Tamika, and welcome to another episode of Connect by Vanity. I thank you for joining me today. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for joining again. Hopefully, you wasn't waiting for me last week because I have a whole story of why I didn't start last week, but we're not getting into that right now. Today, we have to talk about immigration, and I really do appreciate you guys who watch my video, who like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you keep it up. Thank you again. But today we have to talk about immigration and some of the causes that immigration can cause here in the United States. Some of the effects of immigration that can be caused here in the United States. So I wanted to talk about that. According to John Gramlich from the Pew Research Center, it has been as of November 2022, it was 206,239 immigrants that were encountered at the U.S. Mexican border by Border and Protection. So 206, over 200,000 immigrants encountered at the U.S. Mexican border as of November 2022. And those are the ones that has been encountered. Let's keep that in mind. Out of the 206, when they are encountered at the U.S. Mexican border, two things can happen. They could either be apprehended and held in U.S. custody and be detained and then waiting for permission basically to be in the country, or they can be expelled back to their country, which they wouldn't be held in U.S. custody. So under the Biden administration, 68% of the immigrants encountered at the U.S. Mexican border have been apprehended. They haven't been expelled back to their country. They have been apprehended. Under the Trump administration, there were more expulsions, of course, back to the country. I'm not sure which, back to their own country. I'm not sure which one will be better because a lot of these countries are going through a lot of strife and turmoil. We know. I just don't think that the United States can help every other country that goes into turmoil, and they certainly can't come. We can't all gather up in one country. That just would be crazy. I do have some suggestions on maybe how there are other ways that we can help other countries besides allowing them to come and live in our country. Besides, I don't know about the psychological effects or the criminal effects of having so many immigrants join our country. So that's what I'm saying today. I don't want to sound like I'm racist or biased. It's just like not a good situation to mix so many people together. So like 206,239 immigrants, according to John Gramlich from the Pew Research Center. Of those immigrants, some are apprehended, some are expelled. After they determine, how do they determine which ones get expelled and or they just expelling everybody? I think it should just be one law where we just either are we going to expel them or are we going to keep some, because how do you choose which one to keep, unless of course it's women and children? How do you choose which ones to keep? So John Gramlich made a good point where he made another point saying that some of the immigrants, a lot of the immigrants who been encountered at the Mexican border, U.S. Mexican border, were not Mexicans. So we're dealing with people from Peru, Colombia, Nicaragua, Venezuela. We know we're dealing with, we don't even know, that's just what John Gramlich reported. We don't really know how many people are really joining the U.S. border and protection is really encountering at the U.S. Mexican borders. What we know is that, what I know about some of the countries, that's some of the immigrants that's coming in here from other countries, is very dangerous to mix. I wouldn't say normal people, because we're all far from normal. Like they say, everybody has some type of mood disorder. So I'm saying we're mixing people who grew up in extreme violence with people here in the United States. And we didn't really grow up with extreme violence the way they have been growing up with extreme violence. Like, I did a report on the Shining Path organization out in Peru. And because John Graham had said it was about 18 Peruvians who they encountered at the Mexican border. And now it's like over 8,000 Peruvians as of November of 2022. What I researched about the Shining Path organization is that they took over the whole region of Ayacucho, Peru, and it was like real terror. They was like enslaving their people, beating them, starving them, making them work. They were drug trafficking, and like they were really, a lot of the citizens joined the terrorist organization because they were either scared or they just believed in the cause. The Shining Path was started by Abdel Guzman back about 40 years ago. At the end of that era, for I think about 8 to 10 years, it was almost 70,000 people who were killed as a result of that terrorist organization. And they were like brutally killing people, stoning them to death, boiling them in water. I'm scared of that. Like that's not some of the people that I wish to live with in my country or in my town. Like I don't want to live with nobody who's been a terrorist. We don't know who's a terrorist from Peru because so many people that were citizens, normal citizens, were joining the terrorist organization. I'm not sure if they were willingly joining it, but they were joining it and they were a part of that guerrilla warfare that was going on in Peru a while back, and they were storming government buildings just like here when they stormed the Capitol and went under the Trump administration. We don't know who's leading these things, and it could turn into guerrilla warfare. That's what I'm scared of. Like, be scared of guerrilla warfare. Just imagine a bunch of people just running and just throwing you and hitting you with stuff until they kill you. So that's what people are dealing with in Peru. Even recently, I think the Washington Post reported there was another incident that happened in Peru on some government officials and people were killed. So it's still currently going on in the town of Ayacucho. It's still currently going on. We don't know how many people are part of these organizations, and we don't know how many organizations. I just studied one. Like we had a couple of choices. We don't know how many terrorist organizations are coming from different countries. So that's what I'm saying. It's very hard to be this diverse and inclusive that the country want us to be. They want us to be diverse and inclusive of these immigrants. And surprisingly, our president Biden is locking 68% of them up that he encounters. And God knows how long they're going to wait for permission to really belong here. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about the immigration thing. But I have a question for you guys. Can an abused person live a normal life without being violent? Because if you grow up in violence, how else do you live? These people need intense medical treatment. These people, they grew up, they were bred for violence. Just like in Afghanistan, they are recruiting 12-year-olds to be terrorists. And these 12-year-olds are really out there being terrorists, killing people. This is not a joke. Like, if you look up the information, or if, I don't know if some of you heard of it, I'm sure some of you heard of it, because a lot of this stuff I didn't really know until I went to school. So I wasn't really into that far into crime. I read crime stories, like, but local crime stories. Now it's like we're dealing with national, worldly crime stories, and these are not crime stories. These are actually crimes that's happening in our country today. So I'm not sure about, can we mix cultures? Can an abused person live a normal life without being violent, though? Because once you're bred, like, I don't just have a degree in criminal justice. I have a degree in human development with a concentration in psychology. My bachelor's degree is in human development with a concentration in psychology. And we study birth through 18 because a lot of the stuff that happens when you're a baby manifests when you're an adult. So if you was abused as a child, you're probably going to be abusive as an adult if you don't go for treatment, or if you don't get some type of treatment for that violence that they've been experienced. So that's why psychology studies birth through 18, because it really does manifest as an adult. It happened to me. it happens to people. They probably just don't think it's normal when it happens. It just happens. Like I went through a whole crisis in my adulthood in my 40s, and as a result of people dying in my life that I loved as a child, and maybe we went through stuff together, but uh, it really affected my life and my mental health. So we got to think about, if we allow the immigrants to come in the country, are we going to make them get intense mental health therapy and mental health treatment, because they are in need of that, even if they wasn't part of the terrorist organization and they witnessed it and they were victims of it. They definitely need this counseling, because this is all they experience. How do they know how to love people? So we're inviting people in here who don't necessarily like the United States of America, Americans. They don't like our ways, our cultures. And speaking of our ways and cultures and religion, some of the people from other countries are practicing these things, suicide bombings and stoning people to death, because they really think this is some part of a religious cause. I'm not sure who they're worshiping. Like in the Shining Path, they were worshiping Abdel Guzman. He got a whole university of students who were part of his organization, who he recruited through brainwashing them. So we could actually, that's another psychology thing. If you allow somebody to just sit there and talk to you all the time, you will be brainwashed without even knowing it. So it's a lot of things that can happen to us just by listening to one person. Like we could see with Abdel Guzman and other cults that we know about, that just sitting there listening to one violent person can cause you to basically kill yourself and kill others. So that's why with this podcast, I wish some of these youth who is joining these terrorist organizations reach out, comment on my. We could. I don't know if you speak English, but somehow we could get this translated and they can reach out. I don't know. I don't know about youth joining terrorist organization, 12, 13, 14, 15. Their parents should be charged with some type of child neglect for even teaching their children that. But unfortunately, these are what these kids have learned. They are young people that's coming here. A lot of the immigrants who came here were single. We don't know if they're part of a single or if they're radicalists. So we don't know. That's what I'm saying. Are we gonna check into their mind, not just check their paperwork to see if they could be here legally? Check into their mind to see if they are even in the right state of mind to even live a productive and normal life here in the United States. Not just bring them here and just throw them in a shelter and expect them. They don't speak English. Some of them, it's very bad for them. They just came out of poverty. They just came out of poverty. The people in Ayacucho, Peru, are living in extreme inhumane conditions. When we went to Peru to so-called help the Peruvian nation of Ayacucho, we went on a whole drug war after the drug traffickers. We didn't address the inhumane poverty conditions that the people in Peru are living in. They are angry at Westerners and people from the United States. I think we need to learn more about how these people feel about us before we invite them in our country, because honestly, we can't go live in no other country. Blacks, Americans, we can't go live in many other countries without being captive and kidnapped and maybe tortured or killed. And it's very sad that we have to endure this kind of violence and behavior. And but these are the same people that we have to include and be diverse with. So I'm just saying, when we mix in all of these different attitudes, beliefs, and cultures, it's bound to be a clash if we don't know. If we don't know what they're saying, we sure don't know where they're coming from. So we're inviting people here. They could be talking about us right in front of our face and we don't even know it. Me too, because I don't know another language besides English. I know a little bit of elementary school Spanish, and that's it. Intermediate Spanish, and that's it. So, can an abused person live a normal life without being violent? I don't think so. I don't think they can live a normal life without being violent. until they get intense mental health treatment. I think that should be part of the immigration standard. If we're going to allow them here, they need to get intense mental health treatment, just like our people need to get treatment here. We need intense mental health therapy programs, and because obviously the drugs that they're prescribing people for mental health issues hasn't worked, because that's why people are addicted to fentanyl now, because the doctors was prescribing them prescribing them these meds that they got addicted to. So when the doctors realized everybody was addicted and the overdose deaths happened, they pulled back on the meds, which then people started getting it from the streets, which the street drugs was laced with fentanyl, and people were dying. It was over 100,000 fentanyl deaths in 2020. So it's a lot of things that we need to talk about that we cannot capture in one episode of a podcast. I will have to make a podcast every 5 minutes of every day to capture all our nationwide information that needs to be captured, or that needs to be told, or that needs to be getting out there, and it needs to be addressed. Really, a lot of this stuff needs to be addressed. How safe are our borders if we can encounter 206,000 that we encountered? What about the people that's here illegally? That means they made it across the borders. So we can read that the borders are safe, but we could tell by the Texas governor sending it was 76,000 immigrants who came to New York City that we couldn't even handle here, who were standing on the outside of shelters, saying they didn't want to go in shelters when they came from way worse inhumane conditions. Then, in turn, New York City put some men out of a shelter and put the immigrants in a shelter. And I heard one of the men who got put out the shelter had cut his arm. So we're taking people from the United States, from New York City, residents who's been in those shelters, and we put them out for immigrants who came from way worse conditions, who come here and complain, and we get our people put out. So I'm sure a lot of those people were black, but we're not going to get into all of that. Today is about immigration and can we live normally with these people? Poverty is the mother of crime. You come from poverty, you will do crime to eat. That's all I'm saying. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that on this episode. I'm so glad you guys decided to join me. Hopefully we could get some more mental health treatment facilities for our homeless and our immigrants, and we can really make this country and this New York and this world a better place if we do start to be diverse and inclusive. And that just doesn't go just for the United States. We're not the only people who needs to be diverse and inclusive. A lot of other countries need to be diverse and inclusive of Americans and of people from the United States as well. So hopefully these words will reach somebody's head, mind, and heart. And thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for tuning in. I am so glad. Hopefully you like, comment, and subscribe to my video on YouTube. And I am trying to do this voiceover thing so I don't have to have my face on here all the time, because it's not really about me. I just want to really get some points out there. So I'm trying to learn that. So hopefully soon I'll have some voiceover videos where it won't be my face up there all the time. Even though I know you guys want to see my face, because I would love to see y'all. So hopefully we'll do more connecting, and that's the object of my show, to connect. So soon we're going to do more connecting out to other people and other types of videos to where I could get information out to you guys. So God bless you guys, and I hope you guys are well. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon on my next episode of Connect by Vanity. God bless you.